sounds like a lot of fun. I expect to see you in action later on in the week, Ben.
Just about Johnson represented here by SLED because the aircraft need better defensive armament, a bigger bomb load, and better bomb aiming equipment. And the US Army Air Forces B-17s that began to be deployed to Europe from 1942 onwards had all of that. But the RAF's use of the Fortress was far from over, because later marks were used by RAF Coastal Command with a good deal more success than Bomber Command had enjoyed with its earlier B-17s. They joined the Consolidated Liberators of the RAF in the VLR, very long-range role, with Coastal Command helping plug the so-called Atlantic Gap, the area Plain Sailing's Consolidated PBY-5A Catalina. First batch of 50 Catalinas, as we see this one running in from the right, was ordered around the outbreak of war. Many more would follow. In fact, more than 570 of these aircraft would serve with the RAF. Catalinas were pure flying boats, unlike this PBY-5A. The Royal Navy were back in the vicinity. Here we see it coming past with the wingtip floats extended. RAF Catalinas also covered the North African Allied landings operating from Gibraltar. They protected supply convoys flying out of a base close to Murmansk in the Soviet Union. And when it comes to heroism, Coastal Command Catalina crews were at the very forefront. 2 Catalina pilots assigned to Coastal Command were awarded the Victoria Cross in 1944. One of them was a Canadian, Flight Lieutenant David Hornell of number 162 Squadron of the Royal Canadian Air Force. The other was a member of number 210 Squadron, Flying Officer John Cruikshank. And this extract from the citation for his Victoria Cross gives an indication of just what he achieved.
When a U-boat was sighted on the surface, Flying Officer Cruikshank at once turned to the attack. In the face of fierce anti-aircraft fire, he manoeuvred into position and ran in to release his depth charges. Unfortunately, they failed to drop. Without hesitation, he climbed and turned to come in again. The Catalina was met by intense and accurate fire and was repeatedly hit. The navigator bomb aimer was killed. The second pilot and 2 other members of the crew were injured. Flying Officer Cruikshank was struck in 72 places, receiving 2 serious wounds in the lungs and 10 penetrating wounds in the lower limbs. His aircraft was badly damaged and filled with fumes of exploding shells, but he did not falter. He pressed home his attack and released the depth charges himself, straddling the submarine perfectly. The U-boat was sunk. He then collapsed, and the second pilot took over the controls. He recovered shortly afterwards, and though bleeding profusely, insisted on resuming command and retaining it until he was satisfied that the damaged aircraft was under control, and of course had been sometimes lapsed into unconsciousness owing to loss of blood. When he came to, his first thought on each occasion was for the safety of the aircraft and crew. With his assistance, the aircraft was safely landed on the water. by pressing home the second attack in his gravely wounded condition and continuing his exertions on the return journey and his strength failing all the time, he seriously prejudiced his chance of survival, even if the aircraft safely reached its base. Throughout, he set an example of determination, fortitude and devotion to duty in keeping with the highest traditions of the service.
John Cruikshank did survive, and he's still with us today, aged 98. And a few years ago, when this Catalina, operated from Duxford by plain sailing, visited the RAF Lucas Airshow
we've got some pretty miserable weather here today, and that, in fact, would be very familiar to those airmen who carried out those long patrols over the North Atlantic in wartime, where conditions would have been just absolutely awful for a lot of the time.
Yes, and of course conditions on board the aeroplane, quite apart from all the hazards relating to enemy action, would have been decidedly chilly as well, I'm sure. Rather fittingly, it was a Catalina that carried out the last U-boat sinking by Coastal Command of wartime. It was a number 210 Squadron aircraft that did so northeast of Sullom Voe in the Shetlands on the 7th of May 1945, the day before D-Day, or even VE Day. You might notice the very large fuselage side blisters on this aircraft. They're actually oversized compared with how they would have been on in-service Catalinas when they would have had machine guns mounted in them. That's because this aeroplane with one of its previous owners was intended for use on safari flights in Africa, and nothing came of that, but the blisters were retained. They do give an extraordinary view out, and I'm sure that's enjoyed by the plain sailing crew members who go all over Europe on this aeroplane. It really is one of the most far-travelled airplanes on the display circuit, but of course, then as now. And so on short finals, one of those recently graduated display captains on plain sailing's Catalina, Matt Dearden, who for his day job flies a Pilatus PC-12 single turboprop executive aircraft. But now, from left, the two years ago I spoke to former leader of the Red Arrows from 1975 to 76, Dickie Duckett, who said that it was a beautiful aeroplane to fly, very small of course, and you always felt that you put it on when you got into the cockpit. You felt very much part of the aeroplane. I remember Jackie Stewart flying with Ray Hanna one day down at Campbell in the winter. He was a qualified pilot, so I think Ray let him take the controls for a bit. He said it was just like being in a Formula One car with wings. Of course, the name Ray Hanna, one also so closely associated with Duxford, along with his late son Mark, co-founder of the old flying machine company which still operates that magnificent Spitfire MH434 that hopefully we'll be seeing in our Spitfire finale today. Ray, one of the outstanding Red Arrows leaders.